Hi there, I'm Flight Lieutenant James Elliott and I'm leading the volunteer development team for Cadet Portal, reporting directly to the BARDA team at RAF Air HQ. Cadet Portal is the first software platform that has been developed specifically for air cadets serving in the Air Training Corps. It has been created by serving ATC volunteers who have previously implemented local wing software projects such as Squadron Box and My Squadron. These volunteers have been brought together into something called the Volunteer Development Team, or VDT, and we work directly with the BARDA development team at Headquarters Air Cadets. Cadet Portal is an official and fully sanctioned project which links directly to the SMS database to give cadets direct access to their data and a range of functionality. We're currently working on completing the initial version of Cadet Portal, which we have called the Minimum Viable Product, or MVP, and you should think of this as version 0.1. It is hoped that the MVP version will be released to 6 beta testing squadrons in early 2019, with a full core rollout later in the year. The purpose of this video is to provide you with a demonstration of Cadet Portal MVP, but what I would ask is that you bear in mind that this is just the initial version and we're improving it all the time and new features are constantly being added. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to take you through some brief slides at the front end of this before we actually jump onto the live system, just to talk to you about what the team is and what they're doing. The aim of the project is to provide an electronic point of access to cadets to help maximise their engagement and reduce admin burden on volunteers. We've identified some high-level objectives that you can see on the screen there. So the first one is providing a centralised point of access for the cadets' record. We want to allow cadets to track their progress through the PTS and other activity areas. We want to give an integrated event management tool that links directly to SMS to support squadron and multi-squadron events, and we want to give access to a range of useful functionality which helps them engage and improve their service and basically maximise their potential. And it needs to be cadet friendly, so it has to be responsive and basically able to be displayed on any type of browser on any internet connected device. The team itself is headed by Regional Commandant North, and I'm working with the developers there. So we've got a number of guys up and down the country, and we've got a new officer who's just joined us, who's Squadron Leader Aaron O'Rourke. He's going to be doing the media comms for us, and we've just taken on Flying Officer Kevin Grimshire down in South West Region, who's going to be helping us with the development. And you can see there that we're reporting and working alongside the SO2 developer, that's Andy Bracegirdle, and SO3 developer Paul Blackman at RAF Air HQ. So we've got 7 Cadet Forces adult volunteers and 3 supporting permanent staff. A bit of a health and safety warning before we really get into the video. You should think of this as the initial version of the system, and not all of the functionality is there yet. So please bear with us, and more functionality will be added over time. So at this point I'm going to start logging into the Cadet Portal. We've created a user acceptance testing environment, which you can see this URL at the top here, and you won't be able to log into this, but this is where it's currently being served, just so we can test the system. This is connected to a copy of the SMS database, and basically that allows us to make sure that the functionality we're building is going to interface correctly with that and pull the data that we need it to. So this site is currently hosted externally. In the future it will be hosted at this URL, so we're aiming for cadets.barda.mod.uk, and that URL has actually already been reserved and it's available to us, so when we do deploy live in beta and for the core wide rollout, that will be how cadets get to it, and hopefully the landing page for BARDA will be updated as appropriate as well. Cadets are actually going to be signing into the system through Office 365, so the way that will work is the cadets user account will be generated when their SMS record is created. So email will suddenly become a required field because the cadet's username and password for Cadet Portal will get automatically emailed to that address, and when they log in for the first time they'll be prompted to do a password change and then update their record as appropriate. So when I click sign in, what's going to happen is it's going to take me to an Office 365 login environment, and from there the cadet will be able to self-serve their own passwords, so they won't come to the staff because the staff won't be able to reset their password anyway. They'll just do it through a standard Office 365 password recovery system to email or to their mobile phone number if they wish. So if I click the sign in button now, what's happening is it's bouncing us off to a login page. There's a user account, and you can see there that we've got essentially a CIN being used, and that is the anticipated format for the username of the cadet, so it will be their CIN or their cadet identification number, and we put in the password. You can see here there's the forgotten my password link there, and if you've ever used Office 365 you just go through a standard reset process to get that reset. When I hit sign in, it bounces us around a couple of different places, and then we end up on the Cadet Portal, which is what you've got in front of you. So what we've got is a web interface that's been developed on a very, very modern template. We're using a very modern way of developing, and it's big, it's bright, it's easy to read, and we've got lots of real estate to do all sorts of things with. And the first thing we wanted to display on the home page, so to speak, is the event feed. So these are all the events and activities that have been added to the system in the last 7 days. So whenever a new event is added, it'll appear on the home page and the cadet can click view, but I'll come back to events towards the end of the demo. On the upper right here, we've got the cadet's profile, and you can see here there's a photograph of this particular cadet, and basically that's pulling from the SMS record. So the name and all of the information, all the data you're going to see is going to pull from the cadet's record, and this is obviously just a dummy cadet that we're using for this purpose. We've got a notifications icon at the top here, and when I click that, that'll display, in this case, when the cadet's weapon handling tests have expired for the different weapon systems there. And notifications is something we're working on. We're very conscious that notification really needs to get pushed, so it needs to go ideally to the cadet's email, and because we're connecting to the SMS database and this is a sanction project, there's no reason that we can't do push notifications to email as long as the cadet has the option to opt out of them to meet the Data Protection Act 2018 requirements, which includes the GDPR. So that's the notifications. If I click on this little feedback icon down the bottom here, you can see that the cadet can report whether something's broken, something could be improved, or whether they've got a new idea for new functionality. So they can click a button, they can type some words, and we already know who they are because they're logged into the system and they're authenticated, and then they press send feedback and they get a nice little message. That then ends up in a table in the database that we can then interrogate, and we've got various clever tools we can use to pull that data out and display it to us. We've got a bit of a link here about what is Cadet Portal, which has got some words on it, and those words can say anything we want. This is all just draft wording at the moment, but we can change it in the future. And you can see there's some descriptive text along the bottom there. We've then got a menu on the left hand side which takes us to the key bits of functionality that we're going to be going through now. So if I click on the training button, what we're going to see is the training dashboard, and it's going to look an awful lot like the progressive training syllabus. However, PTS is just part of the picture because there are other activities that cadets engage with through their service in the Air Cadets, and the PTS is just part of it. So sports and adventure training and fieldcraft and that kind of stuff that isn't covered by PTS is covered or will be covered in the Cadet Portal in the future. So when I click on training, I see something that looks like this. And what we've got, again, we've tried to keep it nice and bright and pretty. We've tried to use all the high quality icons and things, and this screen is essentially displaying all of the different PTS badges that the cadet has achieved at whichever level they have. So in this case, this cadet warrant officer amazing has done absolutely everything in the Air Cadets, and they're the most amazing cadet you've ever met. So they've achieved the highest level of classification, they've got their pilot wings, they've achieved a gold leadership badge, etc, etc, etc. So if I click on classification, for instance, it will take me to a page that shows me when the cadet progressed through the different elements, and you can see these question marks appearing on each one of these tiles, and if I click one, it will actually do a popover and display how you achieve that actually get to that badge or that award or that qualification. So we don't hide any of the qualifications or the badges from the cadets because we want them to discover things and learn how to progress through the system and achieve the next thing within the progressive training syllabus. And you can see here that when the cadet has achieved something, there's a big green bar along the bottom that brings the date in from their record of when they've achieved it, and this particular cadet has been right the way through the system. So if I jump into the cadet profile now though, so if I click my profile, what this will take me to is the cadet's personal details, and all of this is read-only at the moment. So the intention is in the future that the cadets will be able to edit some of this information and then submit it back, and then it will get pushed back into the SMS database to update their own contact records, so self-serving essentially. However, before we get to that point, we need to have a conversation with senior people within the organisation to talk about, would we allow a cadet, for instance, to change their rank without approval, or would we want some kind of approval mechanism? And if we have an approval mechanism, does that increase admin burden on volunteers? Are we making life harder? And obviously the ideal of this project is that we make things streamlined and easier and reduce admin burden. So at the moment it's a read only, and as a proof of concept you can see here that there's various bits of data pulling in from the cadet's record and being displayed, but we need to have a conversation about how they're going to update it and whether or not we're going to allow them to do that without intervention. If I click on service history, we'll be able to see the cadet's progression through the rank structure and which squadrons they've been on. And you can see here this cadet has been right the way through and they've achieved everything. If they haven't achieved something, basically the image is greyed out and then it says not yet achieved in the bar along the bottom there. Parents and guardians, so if the cadet's got more than one record for their parents and guardians or whoever looks after them, that'll be displayed on this particular screen. And again, at the moment it's pull only, so it's a read-only environment. So the cadets, if they did identify things that were wrong with this data, they'd have to go back to their parents. They'd have to go back to their squadron and get their parents' details updated, and then that will push through to Cadet Portal. So if I go back to the training environment again, we were looking at classifications, we've done that. If we look at aviation, for instance, I click on aviation, I can then see the powered flying awards, again with all of the popovers populated, and the words that are in those popovers have come out of the ACTOs and we've tried to interpret them as best we can. In order to get a blue ATP, the cadet has to complete the FAM course, so if we do a rollover, we can see that the FAM has not yet been completed, but if it had and that record was there, that data would show. We've got things like navigation and pilot scholarships in there. We've also got all the gliding things, and then the civilian gliding wings. We've then got logs for the different types of flying that they can do, so powered and gliding. And this is all live data coming from the system. So if it's in SMS, it's being displayed here. If it's not in SMS, it wouldn't be. The useful links section, what we're looking to do is basically bolt on a useful links section for each page in the future. In order to do that, we need the SharePoint Online project to be completed because we can't afford to provide cadets with a SharePoint license, but what we can do is provide an anonymized link from SharePoint Online, which we can then wire into Cadet Portal essentially. Because when a cadet clicks this certain thing, we want them to be able to click on the source document and not have to have a separate file repository for Cadet Portal, which we then have to maintain and update over time. So we want the cadets to access source data directly, because none of it is protectively marked, none of it is particularly sensitive. So, and the cadet is authenticated into Cadet Portal anyway, so we know who they are and they can click a link and see something. And that'll come up again when we start looking at the downloads area. So if I go back to the training dashboard, I can then look at marksmanship. Marksmanship is quite complicated because there's different weapon systems, there's different levels within those weapon systems, and this particular cadet has obviously achieved a lot. They've done all of the different qualifications in shooting. But if I roll my mouse over these, you can see that different dates can be displayed for the different types of weapons, it'll display the data as appropriate. We've then got things like the National Shooting Awards, competition awards, so we've got Cadet 100, Cadet 50, and again all the popovers are populated, so that's all there. The weapon handling test log, in this particular case, the WHTs for this cadet have all expired. If they're within a certain date range, if they're in date, they'll be green. If they're coming up for expiry, they'll be an amber, and if they have expired, they'll be, as you see on the screen, they're red. We've then got a live fire and marksmanship training log at the bottom, and keeping track of which cadets have completed which CLF is becoming increasingly difficult these days. So again, if that data is entered into SMS, it can be displayed to the cadets so they know when they've completed their live firing. So that's marksmanship. If we move on to leadership, so the leadership area has got the basics. We've also got the specialist leadership qualifications in here, and I appreciate this is going to cause a certain amount of consternation having QAIC and junior leaders in the same place. However, we needed somewhere to put them, and this is where we've plonked them for the time being. If it needs to move, they can, and you can see here that this cadet hasn't actually achieved junior leaders or QAIC, so it says not started, and the image is greyed. But we've got the different leadership qualifications, and again all the popovers are there. If we then jump into Duke of Edinburgh, so here's the DOV award, and at the moment all it displays is when the cadet has actually achieved their qualification or their award. In the future there'll be other things that we can do with DOV, but I don't want to go into that too much detail now. Comms and cyber is comms and cyber, so we've got the basic operator qualifications, we've then got radio and cyber, and again we've extracted information from the different ACTOs to populate the question marks. So that's all there. Next, we've got first aid. So there's the first aid qualifications. That's a fairly sort of basic thing because they achieve it and that's it, and they get a badge. We've then got things like music. Music is actually quite complicated, kind of like marksmanship, because there's different levels of achievement within the different areas. And again, we've implemented a similar sort of rollover. Cadet Portal has been designed to be responsive, so that means it doesn't matter what it's displayed on, it will just reformat itself and work. So if I simulate that now by sticking this into, for instance, an iPad view, you can see here it's changed, and when I do the touch, this is simulating tapping the screen. That's all working. So the system is responsive, and that's very much the premise that we've designed it on, is that it's a fully responsive tool. So if I then go back to training and then look at road marching, we've got the different road marching badges. They're all in, including Megan, and you can see this cadet has achieved everything because she's the most amazing cadet in the world. And also we've got parachuting. There is only one parachuting qualification. It's binary. You either get it or you don't, which is why it hasn't got a sub page, and this cadet hasn't achieved that. And we've also included, as a bit of a proof of concept, we've included another activity area, which is sport. And when we look at sport, the cadets do care about their swimming proficiencies, and we certainly do as staff, because anything for waterborne activities, we have to see the cadets' basic swimming competency be in there. Sports leaders awards and things like that are really important at the squadron level, because the cadets might be leading activities locally. So we want the awards to come through and be displayed. And cadets really care about their sports blues, whether that's a wing or a region or a core blue, because they sew them onto their polo shirts and their towels and all that kind of stuff. And it's a badge that they do get. At the moment, this is a very basic view of this data, and believe it or not, there's about 674 different qualifications in the SMS database, of which a very large number of them are sports related, and we are engaging with the core sports support officer to basically take advice about how best to display information on this particular screen. And that's true for all of the different areas within training. We have spoken to lots of different people and subject matter experts to make sure that we are developing this in a way that is appropriate and fit for purpose. So that's the training dashboard. If we move into the attendance area, when I click attendance, what you're going to see, this is pulling the cadet's absence record from their SMS records. So for all those parade night registers that get filled in, we'll pull that data for that individual cadet, and you can see we've got a nice little pie chart. We've tried to group the different types of absence together into groups. There are more groups than this, but that's the records that have been inputted for this particular cadet. And we want the cadets to understand that attendance is really important, because squadron commanders definitely use attendance as a source of intelligence about promotions, so we want cadets to understand that. Equally, we want cadets to proactively tell us if they're not going to be able to get down to a squadron parade night, and we did think about this being sort of a process with approval in the background and things, but we concluded that wasn't really appropriate, because we're a voluntary youth organisation, and absences are statements more than anything. It's not like a commanding officer can refuse an absence and then demand that the cadets attend, because I don't care if you've got your GCSE maths tomorrow, you will come to the squadron. That's not really how the ATC works. But we want cadets to tell us if they're not going to be around, and that's good information. So what they can do, you can see there's a couple of absence statements in here, but if I click new absence, what it will do is bring up a little date picker. I can then say I'm not going to be around from here until a month onwards potentially, and I can type in some reasons. And what happens is when I press save, that data is actually then going to push back into the SMS database. It's going to look at the parade night registers that have been created for those particular parade nights, and then it's going to move the AWOL radial button to the authorized absence or appropriate checkbox, and that hopefully is going to help reduce admin burden, and that is our first sort of venture into pushing data from Cadet Portal back to the SMS database to make lives easier at the coalface. That's what we're trying to do with things like this. So that is a demonstrable admin burden reduction, we think. The cadets will be able to search their attendance registers, so they'll be able to see when they've been there and when they haven't, and that's a data table that can be sorted and so forth. I'll come back to events last. Next we'll look at downloads. So in the downloads area, what we've got is two sections. The first one is the RAF Air downloads, and all of these links are going to be these SharePoint Online anonymized links that I talked about earlier. Because when the cadet accesses TG21, we want them to access the correct version of that TG21. And like I said, we don't want to have to maintain separate file repositories, because there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of forms, there's a lot of owners that update things, and we don't want them to have to go through the rigmarole of telling us that something has changed changed and then us having to sort of update the files that we've got. We just want the cadets to go directly to the source, and we can achieve that with SharePoint Online, which hopefully will happen at some point in the next 6 months or so. So at the moment these are all just dummy links, but this is the kind of thing that we can list, and we can essentially list anything here: dress regulations, critical forms, that kind of stuff. The squadron downloads area, on SMS you're going to have the capability to basically make files and documentation available to the cadets through Cadet Portal. So let's say you wanted to share your squadron standing orders or your squadron gift aid form or anything like that, that can be achieved through this particular section, and the functionality for the squadron downloads is being built by the BARDA guys at the moment, so that's a work ongoing. And the last section that I want to show you today is the event management piece, and this is really important to us because what we want the system to do is show the cadets a list of events that the squadron is running, or events that the squadron has been invited to. And the key question I get asked all the time is, well, I don't want to display information on particular events because of very good reasons. How do I stop that from happening? And basically what's going to happen on the SMS side of things, there'll be a checkbox that you can untick to prevent the record pushing through into Cadet Portal if you've got a good reason not to show that information to a cadet for whatever reason. So it might be that you've got conflicting priorities, or you've got a higher level, higher profile event happening locally that overruns sort of the wing event or whatever it is. So you'll still be in full control from the SMS side to decide what the cadets see and what they don't. And you can see in this particular database at the moment we've only got one event, and it's happening in this date. But essentially this screen will populate with all the different events and activities that are happening. The cadets can search by an event name or location, and they can also search by type. And this event type is going to change in the future because the current list of different types of events within BARDA is fairly limited, and we're looking to change that with the BARDA guys at the moment. So if this particular event is open, which means I can put my name down for it, and when I click it, essentially what you're going to see is something that you might see on a squadron notice board. So we can see here we've got the name of the event, we've got the overview and timings and so forth, and the cost and some additional information. It might be that the squadron has made some attachments available. In this case there aren't any, but if they were, they'd be listed here. So that might be things like joining instructions, kit lists, maps, all that kind of stuff. The map itself in this case isn't working because this pickup locations aren't a postcode because it's a big string of text. So, but it does work. That will show the cadet a map of where it wants, of where the activity is taking place. And if the cadet wants to sign up for that particular activity, what they can do, they can see the list of returns, the number of cadets that have put their names down, and this other cadet has definitely put their name down for the activity, which is great. And that's a really big motivating factor for cadets because they do care about when other cadets have put their names down, they're more inclined to put their name down for it as well. So if I want to add my name to that particular activity, what I do is click add my name. It then says that's been successful, and it then says you're attending this event, and it's got a green sort of tick. In the future, what it'll also do is produce a link that says print out or produce my completed TG21/23, and that's all possible, and it's something we're looking at. At the moment there's not a policy in place for the organisation about when TG21s and 23s should be used, and that has been raised, so for the time being it will basically be every single event will have an associated TG21 that the cadet can print and sign and so forth. If the cadet changes their mind, they want to remove their name from the list, they just click this remove me, and then they're removed, and you can see that's all functioned. So this is powerful because what that means is as soon as I click add my name for this particular activity on the SMS side of things, the nominal role for that activity will automatically update and have that cadet's name added. So at the moment this system is catering for local squadron run activities and events, multi-squadron events where the squadron has been invited, so that might be a wing athletics competition or a wing swimming event or something like that, but what it doesn't do is the more advanced sort of selection stuff where maybe you're putting cadets forward to wing to get selected at region, to get selected for a core activity, that kind of thing. But that's definitely something that we're going to look at in the future, and we've tried to approach this from the ground up basically. So we're looking at squadron events first, multi-squadron events, and then the more advanced things, which the chain of command definitely wants us to do, will be considered as we go forward and push on with MVP. So That is basically Cadet Portal in a nutshell. It's been quite a quick demo, and the functionality that's going to be included on this site is going to increase over time. And in terms of the next steps, what we're looking to do is basically beta test with 6 squadrons, 1 per region, in Q1 2019. We've got the MOD security and RAF security penetration testing to do, and we might have some corrective action to take on that to make sure the system is fully secure. And then when we launch, we want to be in a position where everything is pen tested, it's all good to go, and then there's going to be the launch of the system itself. We have started to think about communications because it's obviously really important. We've started to think about our audiences. Cadets are obviously an audience, parents are an audience, volunteer staff, including CWC members, are definitely an audience that we want to engage with, and the permanent staff within the organisation, because they need to understand how Cadet Portal is going to affect them and influence change over time. So those are our key audiences that we've identified at the moment. We have identified some key messages, and the first one is that Cadet Portal is there to provide a centralised electronic point of access, basically. The next key message is that it's been designed by volunteers, and we think that's really important that our audiences understand that. So all of my guys on the VDT have been squadron commanders, adjutants, civilian instructors, commissioned. I've got an OC SAT team, you name it. We've got a really varied background. We've been implementing systems like this for quite a number of years, and we've got a lot of experience of doing it. So we want people to understand that we do hope to think we know what we're talking about, and that we understand the requirement that the Cadet Portal is going to help the organisation fulfil. We're not looking to undermine the chain of command. That is not our objective. Our objective is to help by providing an off-squadron source of information that's completely transparent and fair for all cadets. So it doesn't matter who the cadet is, what age they are, they can access the Cadet Portal and use it to their advantage to enhance their experience. It will be part of the BARDA suite of applications. It is directly linked to SMS, as I've said, right the way through, and it is secure, and it will have been pen tested and vetted by the RAF and the MOD by the time we get to launch, and will be part of that BARDA accredited platform. And the last thing is the cadet accounts for Cadet Portal will get generated automatically as soon as a new cadet gets added. So you add that new record, you enter an email address, and that cadet's record then gets created for Cadet Portal. When they do an initial sign-in, they will be asked to sign some kind of PSYOPs in a similar way to the volunteer staff, but we could also look at getting them to sign things like PI 501, the Cadet Code of Conduct, at that point as well. So that's all being looked at. So we've started to identify our key messages. I've got Squadron Leader Aaron O'Rourke, who's the Media Comms Officer North, helping me to deliver the comms strategy, and we're working alongside colleagues at Headquarters Air Cadets as well, because we can harness all of the different mechanisms we've got for comms down there too. In terms of an FAQ, what we're asking from you, not a lot, to be honest, because at the moment the user accounts will be automatically generated when a cadet record is created. The cadets will be able to self-serve, etc., etc. Will a demonstration video be available? Yes. You're watching it. It does rely on the SMS record being up to date. You're absolutely right. So if the SMS data is not there, it will not display in Cadet Portal. So what you're probably going to see is that the customer starts to come to you as members of staff, for instance, and asking why their record maybe isn't as up to date as it should be. Sir, I got promoted last night. Why hasn't my Cadet Portal record been updated? So the pressure will come from the cadets, which is a good thing, because improvements in SMS data quality will bring a whole raft of different improvements to the organisation over time. We haven't built it just because of GDPR. That's a misnomer. That's not true. It is a happy coincidence, and it will help the organisation fulfil its DPA commitments. So that's the Data Protection Act 2018. But we certainly haven't built this just because of GDPR. Not at all. And lastly, on the FAQs, what makes us qualified to do it? Like I said, we're all volunteers that are building it. We haven't been paid volunteer allowance to do it, except for when we've actually gone to RAF Cranwell. All of this has been developed in our own time outside of our existing ATC commitments, family and life and work and everything else. If you want to get involved, yeah, we do want to hear from you, because we need all the support we can get. This video will probably be viewed by cadets and staff alike, and both of those groups are key target audiences, and we want to hear from you. So if you need any support, or if you'd like further information, or you want to help, please drop me an email at wso9.dnl, and I'll get in touch with you. A lot of people ask us about sandboxing and a test environment and all that kind of thing. and people don't necessarily like the answer. So staff won't have direct access to Cadet Portal, full stop, because it's not for the staff, it's for the cadets. And the best way to get around that is to use a cadet on your squadron. As long as they're happy, you can get them to log in as them and use that to demonstrate the system to other cadets and so forth. But we are hoping to have training videos and all that kind of supporting material. We're hoping to be there at the time of launch. And is Cadet Portal secure and resilient? Yes. It's based on BARDA. BARDA is an accredited system. The security around it, particularly around login and authentication, is all from Microsoft, and everything is encrypted in transit and at rest. And it will be penetration tested by the MOD, the RAF, before we release corps-wide. So yes, it is secure and resilient. Next steps. So we've actually just been to command board today because I'm making this video in the afternoon following the command board. We have permission to carry on with development, look at beta testing, and then plan the actual rollout. So they've given us permission for that, which is brilliant. Once we've got to the beta and then taken that feedback from that process, that will help us to build the next iteration. And the way that we build Cadet Portal is based on sprints. So we don't want to do big releases that do large things all at once. We want to drip feed fairly rapidly little different sprints of functionality onto the system over time. That's the intention anyway. So that's the end of the demo and this presentation. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've got any questions at all, please pick up the phone, please drop me an email. That's absolutely fine. If I don't get back to you quickly, it'll just because I'm busy. So email is usually the best, and you can get a response on there. Thank you very much, and goodbye.